So let's move on to the teams list that went undefeated, that I, of course, have a soft spot for, being currently running Cult of Speed for the most part. And of course, some of these, this list does reflect what we've advised, what we've talked about with Cult. So it's nice to see, the theories and the things that I gather from my preferences, and then boom, brought out into the real meta and what's actually being played out there to other players, kind of getting tested and kind of spread differently. So I'm happy to see it. Of course, like we've kind of said and anticipated before, that Cult of Speed, alongside some of these other detachments, like when I said Bully Boys earlier in the video, are more favorable in team. And I think that's why I kind of wanted to show this up. So pretty exciting in that. Don't have notes from the get, but I am familiar with the list. You know what I'm saying? So let's get into it. We have a Beast Boss as the War Horde and a Death Killer War Trike. Nice and clean, right? Whenever you can get an orc list that lean and that clean on characters, you're either gonna have a horrible list or you're gonna have a really filled out list with a ton of units and wounds that the enemy is gonna have to chew through all day. So then we go into just the 10 snaggers, of course, for the Beast Boss. 2 trucks, a Boomdocker Snaz Wagon. That's the wagon. Sorry, that wagon. That's the buggy that has the aura for -1 to hit if you get within 6 inches of it. Doesn't work on monsters or vehicles, as built-in sustain. Small alarms fire, strength 1, -1, 1 damage. 2 minimum size units of Gretchen. 1 custom booster blaster. This is the one that when it shoots at something, if it hits it in the shooting phase with its rivet gun, it'll be -1 to hit. So, and then it also has some built-in flamers on it too. Those are the 2 cheaper ones. And like I've said before, there's something to be said of bringing the debuffing buggies just for all these wounds and ablative wounds, so it's harder for the enemy to chew through. So I really like that he teched into that. The Boomdocker Snaz Wagon's good for the melee matchup. He stages somewhere somewhat safe so the people can't destroy it, make them actually have to get within the aura range to destroy your more important units like the Bikers and the Deffkoptas, or in general anything really. And then of course the custom boosted blaster, so you can actually reach out and shoot the problematic unit that maybe is a little too efficient into your units. So like that, I would like to see not too many buggies, because like I said, buggies can tend to hold you back in the competitive top of Cult of Speed. That doesn't mean they have no play, it just means that you do not run more than 3 generally. Of course, the big 18 Deffkoptas, absolutely amazing in this detachment with the built-in advance, shoot, charge, do whatever you want almost. You can access to the 4-up invuln because it's a vehicle and it's lower than T8. So boom, you get 4-up invuln on this unit for 1 CP. I love it. It's so hard to chew through, and then even when enemies gone dealing with it, they've either over invested or they've under investment. Now you have a free unit to run around and keep doing stuff, and it's flag, right? So that really helps for how you're getting stuck in places a lot. Cult of Speed really suffers when it doesn't have some of these Deffkoptas. Then you go into the difference, another difference from my play style or my unit, whatever, my list that I played, is 20 flash kits. So he has 2 5-man units and then 1 10-man unit of flash kits. Different to see. Would definitely like to hear. So if our boy Andre plays or sees this video, leave a comment, let us know what you think about these flash kits and how they actually did and what your thought process was here. I'm thinking, of course, it could be of 2 things. You have the 2 5-man units for getting more activations, disembarking at time and kind of slow playing it. Then you have the big 10-man brick for those problematic situations where you really need to move through terrain. Like, I don't know if this was played on WTC or GW, but I'm assuming because it was in Italy teams event. I'll show that in a little bit. I'm not 100% sure, but say you're playing GW layout 8, as I've done plenty of times with Cult of Speed. It's the problem is you really can't move to those buildings. Sometimes you really just want a big 10-man brick that can stage up, jump out, do its thing, counter charge, do a bunch of punches, different kind of thing. And then also it has a good amount of wounds as well built in that kind of adds to the whole blade of wound things alongside the Warbikers and the Deffkoptas. And they're relatively cheap for what they are and what they bring. They have their built-in sustain lethal potential. It's pretty sick. So I like seeing 10-man flash kit units, but it's interesting to see them brought as a support. He brought some small DACA support alongside all of these units and then a counter punching unit. And then it's nice because the flash kits themselves are like a combined arms unit, right? So he didn't favor too much his shooting side or his combat side. That unit helps both sides, which is the theme of Cult of Speed. You really much do shoot and one commando unit. You really kind of need that for not getting jailed. Generally, what I see when I'm playing it. He only brought a Breacher Ram and the rockets. Then he's still able to fit a nice 5-man unit of Storm Boys. Still, I think that is vital, and it feels really good because at least how I was running Cult of Speed, still am to a degree. You don't have the Storm Boys necessarily, so it's all the time. So it's like, well, I really need someone to move around and do these actions, be in better positioning, easier to stage up. So I do still like Cultist, a Storm Boy being brought. So though sometimes I don't bring it, I definitely see people still find a way to bring one, because though the similarities are drawn between a Storm Boy and a Warbiker, as in, well, for points you could get this or this, it's not that simple. The Warbiker is not staging and functioning in the same way necessarily, though similarly. But and then we have, of course, the big bricks of Warbikers. Now, I think that it's pretty interesting and nice that we only see one trike. Now, I do play two, maybe because I'm playing GW for whatever reason. I need to close the distance. I prefer two, but I can totally understand why he brings one. So much easier to navigate terrain with that, right? So that's one thing that I can be wondering why it is. And then he also brought the WAAAGH Blast Enhancement. Now, as I've been playing, I haven't really used that. It hasn't come into play too often, but it's when you shoot an enemy unit, but you can move 6 inches, but then you can't charge. That could be for if you really have something you're trying to stave off and be a problem, or if it's late game, you're trying to shoot and get to safety and maybe play more of the mission instead of the killing potential can come into play. But generally, I haven't had that come up too often, maybe because I'm just hyper aggressive with it. So yeah, let me see. So then let's go to the actual event. Let me pull that up. Oh, here we go. So we can go through this gets past the victory. Like I said, it was teams. So here's his team placings. You guys can see Italia. Shout out to the Italian gets. I don't think we have a metric of players there, so I doubt our get will see it, but hopefully he does. So let's look into his actual path to victory. What's up with Chad? Don't worry, Chad. I'll come back to you. I'll answer some of the more questions when we go through his path to victory, and then any questions about the list I answer from live chat after, just so we get through it in like a somewhat timely manner. Let's take it back because I have like multiple more lists I want to show today, so a lot going on. First matchup was Chaos Space Marines with Fabius Bile. It's actually somewhat quite potent detachment and hyper aggressive, so interesting. We have Chaos Lord and then a Chaos Lord. No Fabius Bile. No Fabius Bile on your Fabius Bile detachment. I am accepting your loss. 2 10-man units of Cultists, if 2 5-man units of Legionnaires, a Chaos Rhino, a Chaos Biker unit, 2 units of Chaos Predator Destructors, a 5-man unit of the Nemesis Claws. There we go. 2 big bricks of Possessed, followed by 2 Raptors, and then a big old unit of Warp Talon. So Fabius Bile's thing is he can make units, based off on the beginning of the game. He can make them faster and leave it more durable, or like +1 to hit, even though he's not on this list. I'm saying the detachment. And then they have access to like advance and charge and different buffs like that. Quite aggressive and killy, but he's definitely playing big old mobs and bricks. What's good about that with Cult of Speed is that once you do stage up, get into position, smash into this enemy unit, the army start picking off his smaller units, then he has to come forward with the brick to whatever the initial wave is. In response, you get to take a huge chunk of flesh away from him, and that was really his big pounding damage dealing unit, and these guys aren't necessarily tough. Cult of Speed does suffer into killing, but what I found is the things you actually don't suffer as much killing are big mobs of infantry or just simple Space Marine body. So because when you have these big mobs, they get access to your your Deffkoptas, can sustain 2 of them, hit them with blast. The blast really helps for the fact that their amount of shots are quite inconsistent and their actual shooting is not reliable. But when you give that many volumes of shot and are getting sustained too, you're just so much dice at that point that it becomes a big problem, and you can start melting these guys. Access to mortal wounds if you fly over them. So it's nice in that way as well. He also has that beast boss, remember, so you can run in and smash into a predator destructor, which typically is something a Cult of Speed list could suffer with, or he can tag team it, hit it, and then with something else and pop it. What's also interesting is he could actually do the same thing to the Rhino, for example, right? So say that there's the Legionnaires in there and you're able to get crashing into them first or more aggressively, that he can crush the Rhino with the Beast Boss and then pile into whatever gets out of it with the Bikers. Yes. And then the Bikers can pop Lance for 1 CP. So the light Bikers could be strength 5 on the wall. Legionnaires are only T4. Then you pop Lance. So that's how you would really stack the damage damage with Cult of Speed to start dismantling this army to some degree. So I like that. It was an interesting call to put him into that matchup. So he must have been very familiar with how that could go. So I like to see that. I like to see that because some people would say, well, that army can just aggressively smash into you first, hold you back, and then give you a run for your money. But in response, really, it's he just has a bunch of missiles, and once those missiles come into your Cult of Speed kind of units, you have that -1 buggy, you have those little dumb units floating around, your Mandos, your Storm Boys. When those units are out and about, his cultists can't kill those, right? So he's gonna have to send out the Chaos Lords or some other units, the Nemesis and such like that. You start picking those apart. Very cool to see. Nice run through that. Then we go into his second matchup. I want to make sure I click the right thing. So then we go into a Orc mirror match, but this is with Warhorde versus Cult of Speed. There you go. Oh man, double beast bosses, a Big Mech, Dikra, Gazgul Traka, and a Zagrat Wartsnaga. This gets after me on hot. It looks like some of the list that I'd play. Two 10-man units of Snagas, a big 20-man unit of the boys, double wagons. Here we go. A flash kit brick, two 5-man units of flash kits, a 20-man of Super Gretchen, two minimum-sized unit of Gretchen, and then a Mando followed by a Storm Boy unit. So normally the Orc matchup is so chaotic because both of you guys are somewhat statically slow in your own way without the wall, where you're kind of creeping into each other and you're not too aggressively trying to stage because another Orc player can charge you. We'll talk about mirrors more today, but we'll unpack that a little bit, how those games could go. But the whole point of it is you need to get your pound of flesh. That who can declare the wall, make the contact with the most units, can typically do a lot of damage. Another thing to take into consideration is Cult of Speed can possibly close the distance faster even without the wall, so you're still checking those threat ranges. Possibility of jailing going on between all these battle wagons, and if you take these chunks of flesh off the the Warhorde list before they have a lot of CP, they can't stack all of the defensive abilities, and there are also fights on death and their interventions or their counter fighting or anything like that, their interruptions. So very elite because every single character thing is built to kill vehicles and to be quite tough. So yeah, I like to see that. I can see it as being a very technical game when you have a Zod break there, but then the Trike unit can run it down, right? So he has to be kind of defensive with the Zod unit, because last thing you would want is a biker unit with Zod with the Death Killer War Trike getting some kind of line of fire on that and then being able to charge it, ton of damage and stuff like that. It could just crash right into it and kind of hold it and jail Warhorde in place, which is what it doesn't want, especially with this double wagons. And you can see that he does have a unit of Mandos, but then we don't know what happens with who actually got Defender first, right? So yeah, there's just a lot of things that can go on here, a lot of combined arms asset behind this. And once the Warhorde list crashes into Cult of Speed and clears whatever the first wave is, in the response, they're quite soft bodies, and Cult of Speed has a ton of volume. Like I've spoken about, Deffkoptas, they can charge an Orc Boy unit even if it's done with the wall, right? The Deffkoptas are already base strength 5 and pop lance, and each Kopta has 6 attacks. Okay, I just blend this unit down as well. And in response, the Orcs are now drawn back down to lower strength thresholds. The Flash Gits or the whatever leftover Mandos or the Boys or the Snagas are all going to be around strength 4 or 5 for the rest of the game post wall. So it's really able of the Cult of Speed player to dictate what's actually getting engaged with when the other counter wall is called. So interesting to see. That would be, you think of just the big melee destruction missile of what could be Warhorde in the gas brick and everything, and it runs into just a bunch of units, right? A bunch of flash kits, because there's even a bunch of flash kits on our Andreas list, right? There's all the buggies, all the bikers, and 20 flash kits and snagger. So you're dealing with a lot of similar just profile volume of damage. I'd like to see that. It's really cool. Then we go on to his third game, where he goes into Drukhari, Spectral of Spite. Another one of those matchups that for a Warhorde or a typical Orc list would be considered problematic, between the pain tokens, volume of punches, their stratagems, their shenanigans. It's Lady, Slilac, Lilith Hexpress, Succubus's, 3 of them, 3 Succubus, a Cabalite Warrior, 4 10-man units of Witches, a Hellion, 2 10-man units of Hellion, sorry guys, a Raider, a Ravager, double Reaver, 3-man units of Reavers, a 5-man Scourge with heavy weapons, and then 4 Venoms for all of those little Witch units. Now, I've played into Eldar with Cult of Speed and similar types of units like this. And this is problematic for a Warhorde style. Bunch of small arms fire. They can push their pain tokens up. They have anti-infantry weapons as well. But what they don't have is good counter weapons into a bunch of T6 trash units that are also able to run them down, disembark them possibly, and then also pile in. Because keep in mind, a lot of people are like, well, they got all these transports still. The issue is that I can crash into their venoms, which are soft as destroy their venom with maybe a biker unit, maybe even a flashgate unit, whatever, and then whatever whatever multi-charge that venom as well can pile into whatever disembarked it. So these units really aren't safe in the same way they would be with Warhorde, where the Warhorde player has to stage up and the Drukhari player can run up and attack them and find a way to re-embark into their transport, and then stage away from them for the wall and then take a huge chunk of flesh out of them. It's like, no. Cult of Speed will go first into you if you wait too long, and then they'll stay on you with waves and waves doing the counter of what Drukhari wants to typically do to them, to other armies. Right? Yeah, like I've had so much success with like just the Warbikers shooters on the side of it with the Deffkoptas Wartrike. Deffkoptas Wartrike gets an additional AP from the bikers being on the list, so I can go up to AP2. I believe these guys have influence anyways, but you can have that, as well as all the bikers have twinling, so they're strength 5. So if you wanted to shoot into it, and each guy, if you're within 9 inches, gets 5 shots of the bikers, you can just melt a Eldar unit as well, popping sustain as well. Then you just twin link it. Oh my goodness, just melting them without even having to really get into fights with some of them sometimes. And like I said, their pain tokens can push them up to strength, I believe, 5, and most of their weapons from last I checked were strength 3 when I was researching this matchup. So they're not going to push through that anyway. So now I'm not saying they can't win it. They have a lot of units. Obviously they're playing with a lot of OC still on their list, a lot of shenanigans, so it's a respectable matchup. But Cult of Speed again coming through with that skew in a way that some other styles of orcs might struggle with. So awesome win right there, Andre. And then we go into his lowest scoring win. So Drukhari was a second, but this was his lowest scoring win. Still a good score. It's good, still good score. The fact that a 15 is considered low means you did great. What's up, chat? We're getting through this. He goes into the Necrons, the Pantheon of Woe. So we have Catacomb Command Barge and a bunch of Catan. So double Transcendence, a Void Dragon, a Nightbringer, and a Deceiver. A Canoptic Swarm, some Flayed Ones, Locust Destroyer, Locust Destroyer, Locust Destroyer. This is exactly the kind of weird skew that Cult of Speed can win without having to necessarily care about how much damage it's dealing. Or run down their little Locust Destroyers, run down their Flayed Ones and their Swarms, and they're playing the game with just a bunch of Catans, right? This Command Barge, I believe in this one, it can be quite durable. I think, yeah, it's not though. No, that's Awaken, but nonetheless, no, he can give out OC, I believe, as well. But these guys are getting out OC'd from all the 2 OC bikers, all the 2 OC Koptas. You have still the dumb buggies. This is what I was talking about. Now the custom boost of Blasta can maybe debuff one of these Catans from its shooting a little bit before it gets to you. Like if you have to smash down the Void Dragon who's huge, could you bring down a Catan? Possibly, but it's much more likely that you kill everything else first in Cult of Speed. And if you spike, with your rockets or any other type of things, yes, you could probably stack it, right? If your Deffkoptas Wartrike gets a melted through, for example, whatever it may be, you can try to bring down one of these, and I probably would. Based off the positioning of the battlefield and what can actually get to what. But having that many bodies in OC, you're just constantly not letting him play the primary, and he will score secondaries, which is what it looks like killing you for still being in combat with you and being able to just exist the whole time, murdering whatever he wants. But he's going to just be standing all around most of the time once he makes contact. And that's generally the issue for Necrons as a whole. So very cool to see that. This was one of those theoretical things that we talked about when we were talking about how orcs are doing now and each detachment and why I play Cult of Speed. This is one of those things. Now, of course, this is a team setting, so this is an odd skew that you might see in singles, but the get running this never expected to win the event. They're just trying to ruin some mid-table games. So this is still something you have to account for, and I love to see that he got that matchup and took it for the team, so someone else that with a normal army didn't have to deal with that, right? You're like, oh, you're playing something a dumb skew, so am I. Oh, right? So, awesome, love that. That's what I love when orcs party poop the Necron parade. It's one of my favorite experiences. Then we go into his last game, which is another Creations of Bile. So we have Cypher Lord, Chaos Lord. Cypher is great. We have Fabius Bio, so he can pick up a model in his unit. From what I remember, he can tank a damage to 0, and then he can the unit that he's when he's with. So he double cultists, legionnaire, some chaos bikers, chaos rhino, a big brick of the chosen, most likely for Fabius Bio, Nemesis Claw, triple 10-man possessed. Yes, that's what you expect to see round 3, boys, right? Let me see what characters again. So Chaos Lord. So those possessed are just getting it down. They can just pop devastating from what I remember as well, built into their data sheet. And then a big 10-man units of the warp talons. As I said before, now you do have to be careful. Not let the enemy make too much contact with your Cult of Speed stuff, because then you've just been deleted a little bit too early, which is what I think is also somewhat of a factor for those flash kits that were incorporated into this list, right? Those little 5-man units, the trucks, the Mandos, these units are what's going to go and draw out these more killing brickish type units, because he doesn't have a lot of trading more skirmishes pieces. And once the bikers get into play and run up the field, if he's staging too much in a dumb position with his rhino, Cult of Speed could take advantage of that, like we spoke about earlier with other transports, where you multi-charge them, blow them up, get stuff out, and then charge that stuff. These possessed are very fast, boatload of attacks that they can get up. I think up to strength 6 and then higher, maybe in bio. I believe it's strength 6 because you get +2 strength, +1 strength, something like that. And then they have, I think, access to sustain as well. It's been a while since I played against them, but these guys are definitely the real deal. The thing that they're also is a big brick of 10 dudes when you're playing big Copta units. So don't give up your Coptas in this matchup early, of course. Pop that sustain 2, enjoy that blast. If it's a lower than 5-man unit, and if it's like a 4-man unit of elites, like 8-bound, my Coptas aren't reliable really sometimes, because you just don't get enough shots. But when you're going into a big dumb unit like this and you just pop sustain, you just end up with too many punches, shots, and then you twin link it. Not to mention, you still have the bikers that can power through this, and he has all those flash kits on the list as well. So this would be one of those, I need to get you to invest those chosen into my not as important units. Maybe give up one of the biker units on the list, and then in response, everything can dogpile from the snaggers to the flash kits, the 10-man brick, speaking of, right? And then everybody else. That's where also 10-man of flash kits might also be cool in the matchup. So love to see that. This, I'm sure, was a perilous game when you're thinking about the big missiles, but in reality, and then there's the chosen, with these guys that have built-in advance in charge, fallback in charge, so they're their mini Cult of Speed. They too as well, they'll only have about strength 5. So they're gonna have to take some buffs from that to get to be a more threatening to Cult of Speed, but none of those Cult of Speed units are super durable other than the Coptas. The issue is there's also mortal wound potential from Cult of Speed and stopping you from scoring on just the primary. So though he's trying to play, I need to do a missling backbreaking shot into you with all these possessed, you can still just play the game. You can still just play for primary, deny him. Okay, you're going to try to slow play me. Okay, well, once those guys come out, it's game on. Or if there's just so many of them, you might be able to get the initiative on them, because these big 10-man bricks are going to be kind of hard to hide when you're advanced shooting, charging all over the field as well. So sweet. I love it. He got a big old 19-point win there. So even though it seems super problematic of the damage, a lot of time people try to simplify things to this has enough damage to delete this, therefore this can't win the game, or this is going to struggle. That can be the case, but getting the initiative, key and very important, and what Cult of Speed does best. So let's look back at this Cult of Speed list real quick, and then we'll look at the chat. If anybody any questions, we have Wicked Joe with 10 Walk Tactic gifted memberships. Whoa, nice to see the big get box. Yeah, what's up, War Boss? You made it back. I know you're getting stuck in with your hobbying, so you better be hobbying right now while we're watching this, because we got to get ready for that 11th edition so you can go out another world tour like you were doing. So shout out to Wicked Joe. Let's get some mega knobs in chat for Wicked Joe. Thank you for being here, and we appreciate it. Very generous. Been here since the beginning, so shout out to that great War Boss. So getting you guys stuck in. I see you boys moving green. Bunch of spores just got released into the sky. So then we have, someone was asking, how much of this kind of list is starting off the board typically? Typically, just one unit of Deffkoptas I hide off the field, because I'm not willing to let my Deffkoptas take damage early. They're really, really, really important late game when you can pop the invones and keep flying around and touching stuff and throwing your OC around. And so I like to keep my Coptas for like the third wave, typically, as I said. When you're playing with this Cult of Speed list, if you have to use all your bikers, for example, like early turn one, and you haven't killed enough of the enemy, and they do have enough damage to kill you, like the last possessed list that we just seen, and you admit all those Warbikers, well, then clearly you're going to run out of your screens, your waves, your assets far too early. So there is a measure of kill the enemy to a degree first, draw out their best assets, try to cripple them, and then hit them with your remaining two waves. So that first wave is kind of like the fodder wave, right? But that's why you would put a Deffkoptas unit in reserve. Also, it's a pretty cool ingress, and it keeps your enemy honest with treating their backfield, right? Sometimes they don't really understand this matchup, don't take it as serious, or they do understand it and they're like, oh, if you put nothing in deep strike, I'm just going to front load everything and full damage you. It's like, no, I'm going to put one of these things in deep strike just to keep you honest and screening your backfield so you can't front load your whole army's damage potential. And then I'll still maybe drop these Coptas in a good position. So thanks for the question. That was a good one there. Shout out to Wicked Joe again. Oh, and then our boy Flynn, $5 Cult of Speed, Cult of Speed, Cult of Speed. Whoa! I know Flynn's been playing Cult of Speed recently. So shout out to that because I know he's pumped about it. People always doubt it, and you start playing it, you enjoy some of the buggies sometimes and everything. It's still super fun. What's up? Exactly. Red ones are faster. And of course, our boy Andre from Italy proved it. So shout out to Cult of Speed being the undefeated teams list from this last weekend. Of course, I've said my piece about Cult of Speed. I know there's other people that are putting waves out there and catching on the Cult of Speed, but I will say it isn't a new tech. It's a known thing if you've been watching Channel 2, but it's a known thing not because I'm so wise. It's, I heard about it along the edges of the perimeter of the Great Wall world, and also I have all the models, so of course I got to play it. So that's how I figured it out too. So people a lot of the time though were noticing it in teams and became a little bit too much askew for singles once Eldar fell away and some of those other type of armies. So I still think they have a lot of play, and I think they really shined here in teams. So I'm pretty excited for that. Shout out to our sponsors, the Baron of Dice, as they helped us do our wall tactic dice. So shout them out. Check them out in the description, 5% off in the discount because nobody likes taxes. And shout out to Baron of Dice. They allow us to do our paint competition. So thank you very much to them. If you enjoyed the clip, check out the full video here. If you'd like to see more tactics, click here.
Let's get stuck in, lads!